Text, Chaffee College. Home edition. Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art. Artist Talk, Pável Acevedo, September 28, 2020 from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Rebecca Trawick.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's program, presented as part of Wignall Museum's Home Edition, a series of curated artist talks, workshops, and discussions featuring artists and cultural workers. My name is Rebecca Trawick. I'm the director and curator of the Wignall Museum. The Wignall Museum is a teaching museum and interdisciplinary art space that introduces Chaffee College students, faculty, staff, and community members to innovative contemporary art objects and ideas. By fostering critical thinking, visual literacy, discourse, and empathy, the museum seeks to enhance the intellectual and cultural life of our community. We want to take a moment to recognize that we are situated on the Rancho Cucamonga campus of Chaffee College, which resides on the traditional and unceded lands of the Tongva people. We offer our respect to the elders, both past, present, and future. Please let me introduce Pável to you all. Pável Acevedo was born in Oaxaca, Mexico in 1984. In 2010, Acevedo relocated to Riverside, California. He began working in communities of color and using his work as a tool for activism, addressing issues surrounding immigration, social justice, and education. Acevedo travels the US, giving printmaking workshops at locations including Kala Art Institute, Berkeley, California, Newgrounds, Remark Print Shop, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Horned Toad Prints, El Paso, Texas, and College of the Canyons Art Gallery, Santa Clarita, California. As an art educator, he also collaborates as part of the I Learn America program, working with high school students in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Maryland. Currently, Acevedo has been awarded the 2019-2020 Fellowship Artist from Art Institute in Berkeley, and as an artist in residence at Self-Help Graphics in 2020. Acevedo has been commissioned to paint murals at institutions throughout Southern California. He's included in public and private collections and has exhibited across the US and Mexico. So please join me in welcoming Pável Acevedo.
Acevedo.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for making some time today to join us to this new format. Our artists are like working right now, so like some talks and like any like pre-making demos or demos that you like. So basically, this talk is gonna be like diving a little bit in some elements that they're being on the murals at the Chaffee College. There's two murals that are being like there right now. The last one was like finished just before this pandemic started, so it was just probably 2-3 weeks ago before the shutdown started, and it's at the dining area. So I will be talking about it, and just like I will start from that mural, and I will go from the next mural that's it's at the Wignall Museum Contemporary of Art. So that's how it's gonna be like navigating. And in between, I will like have some bring in some elements from pre-making. That mostly that's what I do.
Text, background elements for Chaffee's murals.
So the idea origin about the dining area was about it was basically to like to talk about like, of course, the dining area and what's like offering there, like the food products and the students that comes in the dining area. So we were like talking about like what was the elements of what was like the products that like it's being offered in Southern California or the Inland Empire. So we just like came up with elements as grapes, which is there's a grape camp and a grape camp there in the college, and other ones elements like oranges, and there's like tomatoes, which is represent like the mostly elements that be like California produce, and there's another one like potatoes and like lettuces. So those are the elements, and they're the ones that like basically like they're being like farmed through California, and like basically they mostly like degenerates the California. So those were the elements, and around that we would just like start like bringing some other elements, and of course it's like the San Gabriel the mountains. They just like it's right behind the college, and what is called the it's called the Cucamonga Peak. That's what it's called. And yeah, like they were saying, it's right in the Tonga land. So that was one of the elements that we're like bringing in this mural. So the first image that was like for the proposal, if you would like to put it, please.
A drawing of two women with long dark hair crouching on earth, one of them wearing a mask with big eyes, teeth, and whiskers. She holds a plant. The other woman has twigs growing from her back and digs with her hands in the ground. The image is framed by vines and fruits, and there are low mountains in the background.
This was it was a digital like proposal based on the elements. So the first proposal was like it was like a gratitude to the land. So, and I just like basically when I'm working with some elements, I just or projects, I try to like see, well, how can I what's related to those projects to myself and to like what's I'm working currently. So basically it was like a gratitude to the land, and I came up with that because there's stories where my grandpa used to tell me about like how like you offer the products to the land like as a gratitude, and like it's a cycle that you go with it, and that's something that it passed through generations. My grandpa came from a farmer like family, like right in this in the it was right in the South Sierra of Oaxaca. So that's where he came. So it was always like give like the gratitude to the land. And at the same time, I was thinking about like we have like the San Gabriel Mountains behind it. So it's like what was the big animals, or like oh, they will be represented, because at the same time, like talking about the animals is talking about the power it's surrounded, and in other ways to me I learned that they're protectors so of the land and of the community, and a lot of times community based on those protectors. So that's why you will see in your left hand side like a child with the mask of a mountain lion, which is to me was like the equivalent as a jaguar for the for Oaxaca, or for like mostly of all the South, like Mesoamerica. There's like the jaguar is like the prominent figure, like the power. So it's the main one. In your right hand side, you will see like what it could be a farmer, what it could be like somebody like having respect like to the one who's giving the product and like who's showing it. But at the same time, when that person like is growing some leaves, and it's kind of making it more like ambiguous, like who the character is. And right in the back is the San Gabriel Mountains. But it was like that discussion, and at the same time, it was like the mountains were like too far, so they want to like bringing it more like into the picture. So we came to the next to the next slides. But in this one, for example, I came out to work with the mountain lions based on my experience with the jaguars.
Text, representation of characters, animals in the mural. A person in a jaguar costume and mask, a bright yellow striped suit. The cat mask has large eyes and its tongue sticking out. The person in the jaguar suit flips a young boy backwards.
In Mexico, specifically in Oaxaca, where I grew up, there's like the jaguar, and there's always like this dancers about it. So there's this community called Pinotepa de Don Luis, where they always do like a carnival, and basically it's an honor to the jaguar because, like I said before, it's like the main protector during the in what is called like Oaxaca, which is like the coast, and it goes to Guerrero, but it actually could go just like farther. So The jaguar is like the main character and the main protector, and basically it's like they're related to like one of the main goddess from the um, from the pre-Hispanic times, which is his name is Tezcatlipoca, which is like a jaguar. So even I remember my grandpa used to always tell like, yeah, he refers to the jaguar like the ruler, the el Dios del Monte, or like El Señor del Monte, like which is like the Lord of the wilderness. So he was always like, it was the main protector. So it was to me like bringing like that, mixing the animal with the humans, or with the figure of like a person, and have like this like connection, because that's how I always like, or I used to learn like tales about it. So in the next slide, you will see how like it came like some changes about like for the mural.
Text, second proposal for the offer mural. The drawing of the two crouching women. This time the girl is not wearing a jaguar mask.
And it was like the other ones were like more like they want to see more like the characters, the faces of the characters that were gonna be represented. So we just have one without like just the faces. To me, it felt like it was a little bit more like far from what I was looking for. But they were like concerned too, like about how was the Jaguar gonna look like, or if they weren't getting the right message. So for the last one, the next slide, please.
A photo of a large room filled with long tables and chairs. The far wall is covered in the mural of the first drawing of the two crouching women, one in a jaguar mask.
So that one, it was like for them, like to using how it was gonna look for them, the dimensions. And this time I've been using more like digital illustrations. So I can just like get a little bit close to what it's gonna look like. And actually what I can just present to like, to whoever I'm working, because for like artists, it's like easy to like put a random sketch on a paper and show it, and you know it's not gonna look like that. But for the public that you're working at, it's a close look like. So it was navigating still with the first sketch to the second one, and it was for them like to see how it's gonna look like, the dimensions and what they're gonna be seen. For example, the grapes you will see in your left, and the other elements will go on the back. But yeah, it was a closer look like. And for example, like I was telling the person in your right hand side who's like looking down, like showing us a respect, it's like growing some leaves, some grass from the body, and it's just to like talking about the connection that sometimes we lost it, or feel like we're too far about, like just because of like daily lives, we always get like this, like we kind of lost something about it. I don't want to say like it's totally lost, but it's there, there's a space sometimes, and sometimes we just have to work around it and just ground it ourselves to just come back up again. But I can show you for the next slide.
A more refined and detailed drawing of two women crouching and facing each other over the soil. One wears a snarling big cat mask, this time on the back of her head. The other appears to have twigs and leaves growing from her back and limbs. They plant a root in a hole in the ground and are framed by yellow flowers, grapes and oranges, a red ribbon and flying owls with low mountains in the background.
That was the last sketch. So for example, in this one, it was just more like including the mountain lion, which is like right in the back of her head, which is like showing who's gonna be playing the role of in the connection and with the main character or the main protector of the land. And the San Gabriel Mountains are like rising more up. And to me, I always like to have this ambiguous ambiguous role about like what's around it of the characters. Like to me, sometimes I like to feel it like these two characters that you will see in there, they are mostly like giants, because like if you put like the perspective like more like critical, it doesn't work this perspective, because they're child. So the mountains, they have to look way higher. So but to me it's just like it to me works, because I always like to have this ambiguous like talk about like what's these elements that you see in front. And I always like to work it, because there's there's always this stories I always heard, they always come within like I would like they probably will say like fantasy with reality, but there's always like a lesson from there. So it to me works like that. So it's still like representing like a figure of child, and it's easily to read for whoever. And I want to always bring those elements to throw it a little bit off. So the colors were like, for example, the ribbon was represented because it's one of the main colors for the campus. You will see in all of their in anything they will use like stamps, and they were like talking about like bringing animals that will represent like knowledge, and one of them is like an owl or a barn owl. So that's what you see, you're like in a bulb left and right. So it's more like closing the picture, and the flowers that you see around, they're basically the sunflowers. They're like the wildflowers that you will see all around the Southern California. You will see all like freeways, like, and all this empty lands from the Inland Empire. So that's something that to me always grab, and we always grab like as a creators, like everything that you go around for some reason will just like stick on you, and sometimes it comes just in a way that's more like you're not really like thoughtful or whatever, comes from your unconscious. That's what I was saying. So, and it's a way to connect and to talk and to link to land and try to acknowledge that. So those are the sunflowers, the wild sunflowers that you still can see around. And there's like the potatoes, they are in the hand from the character holding the Mount Lion mask, and the other one has like a celery. In this last one, I didn't include what is like you will see in the final and mural, which is like tomatoes and like lettuce. That's right in the front, and that's always like you offer the first products that you would like you cut from your like from your harvest. So that's like always like a respect, and you always like a gratitude from the land. And that's always that I learned from my grandpa. They all I have only one uncle is still like working the land, and he still keeps doing the same ritual. So for example, to me, or I found out later on, all these empty lands in between Riverside or like Inland Empire is really like a characteristic feeling to me. And I kind of like being like now seeing more of my work. So that was one of like the things I want to represent it here. Like you will see in the mural, there's a little bit of pink on the mountains, behind the mountains. There's no final pictures of this mural because of the pandemic, so everything got just like spread. There was gonna be like another way to have like more elements around it, like pollinators that didn't work in this side of the wall, but they did work at the end on the opposite side of the wall, because this dining room has like two walls painted. And like as you see in these two characters, that they have more like um, elements like herbs or like plants growing from themselves. It's just like I was talking about it, like just this connection that we have, like, and that's why the two characters, they just like they're very they don't have it, they don't wear any shoes, they're like really like grounded. So that's sometimes we're looking for, especially in these times. uh, it works more, and it's always good like to be outside. It grounds you and like gives you a different perspective.
A
It's
photo
the
of Acevedo on a ladder painting the black outline of the drawing on a wall.
This is the beginning of the sketch for the mural, and then we choose the outlining for that. This mural was like basically it was the fastest mural, I guess. Was probably, I would say, 10 days. It was fast. Have somebody like helping me. So I always like to have come from a great great background from the mural instead of working around it, and always like to incorporate the way that I do like to carve my plates.
Photos of the mural in progress. Acevedo painting the color. A detailed close-up of the girl with the cat mask on the back of her head, with fine-line textured skin, hair, and fabric.
Yeah, here's some details about like the mural when it's like more like farther. So our idea was using, for example, like elements in the body, like spray paint. But for the rest, I was just like, it's just acrylic paint and brush. So I do like to use like angle brushes. So that will like, it mimics a little bit the the mimics of the carving from the lina cuts on the wood cuts. And yeah, I do like that. That always the feeling, and it keeps me like it gives me it separates for me from me the way of I used to paint before. I used to like to do like paintings when I was back at school, more like trying to get more realistic, more like a paint. And right now it's just I can just go between like a print to a drawing to like a paint. I don't know. It's more like freedom for me. And for example, for the you will see in the back the flowers, which is the wild the sunflowers, the wild sunflowers. And I start those ones. I put that background as black, so I can just have more like sharp edges, and I can have more like a high contrast between the colors with the black, and have a little bit more of depth. So that's what I was working on it, and that's the ribbon, which is like I did the same time, and this time I was just cutting black from gray to black, from black to color, and yeah, this was a fun project. So we can play the next slide, please.
A photo of a close view of the girl's body, her skin and clothes appearing to vibrate with fine lines.
Yeah, this is just more a close up about the details with the brush and the colors. And yeah, it's just like I was just thinking about the way to like when I paint, I try to think or like just be in the mindset about like carving a multicolor plate. So that's an exercise to me. So it just like it throws me away about like thinking of painting and thinking about all the images that I have and that I learn about like what's painting or what's all what I like from painting. And it only keeps me to thinking about like pre-making. Only keeps me it keeps me just about like what I'm looking on the each carving that I'm placing, what I'm like trying to reach for the next project. So it's a good game. It's like when you're hungry, you're not even able to go and eat right away. So you eat whatever snack just to like cheat on your stomach. That's what I feel with this, and it works. This one was like I feel like this is what I'm being actually like looking for more in the next projects.
A photo of a girl standing in front of the completed mural next to the photo of the mural draft digitally projected on the wall.
So just having those more like games with color, I think like will bring color to the mural, change a little bit more. I do like more. Then here's you will see the final product with the first one, and they always work around like the figure of my daughter. She's always like in my work because we're tied, we're close to each other, and to me it's a way to relate to any aspect that it's happening in the moment too, and it will happen in the future, like her like having like two identities, and at the same time too right now like talking about childs is just like opening a layer about what's happening and what's the role of childs in this time. So it's you know it's really important to me in every aspect. So and just bringing her in this like in this and my artwork is just like having the importance I think like of like the creativity of like a child will have, you know, in artwork and daily stuff about life. You know, it's always like have like this work between but what's a child creativity with what could be like your adult life. You know, I don't want to call it like always like say that a child is a truly artist. I don't see it like that way. I just feel it's a way for them to think. And many creative persons, we just have like, we always keep it until we ever like we decide, always to have it. So you will see more like how like the final product looks alike, and just she's used to like having to like a weight of the dimension with the characters. And I do too like have that connect of or like a female, or probably couldn't be looking like female aspect, but it's always like the that connection that could be with the surroundings. We always have to learn, and it's about like being like more like open. And I feel like always like a person they portrays to self, or like embrace a femininity in their persona, is always like compassion. So it's a hard way to learn. It took a while. It was gonna take always a while, and it felt like we can always learn from a female perspective. So we can play the next slide. So for this
Text, I landscape. A photo of industrial scaffolding with sunflowers growing in front.
for that mural which is happening, it was just always like I was talking about, like the landscape that we always go across for work, or any other activities that we have. And to me, it's always like, as many like visual artists, it comes through like our eyes, what we see. Sometimes we don't know what we're looking at, and sometimes it will appear on our artwork. So I will show like sometimes like places they like to do more recent projects. And if you want, like we can play the video. There's a video there. We just recently did it. So
Video plays. Text in Spanish, then English. I stroll along serenely, with my eyes, with my shoes, my rage, forgetting everything. I walk by. Pablo Neruda. A silhouette of a crouching person walks to the brightly lit end of a round tunnel. They wear a backpack and their face is covered with a bandana. Tall golden grass waves gently in the breeze. Acevedo leans over a sunflower plant. He sprays water from a spray bottle into a flowers in a plastic bag. Stalks of grass against a pale gold sky. Acevedo stands under the waving leafy branches of a tree. In one hand, he holds a water bottle and a bunch of sunflowers, lit from behind by the setting sun. In his other hand, he taps a mobile phone. The sun sets in shades of red and yellow on the distant mountains. A gold doorknob. A pile of curling wood shavings on the floor. A brush traces black paint across the edge of a carving of a woman's face, heavily textured with lines carved into the wood. Acevedo leans over the work, brushing wood shavings aside with his hands and carving more with the handheld tool. He digs the tool into the wood to define the woman's eye. A small fly lands on his hand, and he shakes it off. The workspace is surrounded by brushes, blades, and pots of paint. The woman in the carving wears a black face mask with flowers on it. The good doorknob. A black and white photo of a person comes into focus, panning across crude sculptures of people's faces that are plant pots holding succulents. Acevedo lays a large white sheet of paper on a table. He rips it carefully along a straight edge. He squeezes out a damp sponge into a potted plant. A carving of a face with dark eyes, a drawing of an elderly woman's face. A young girl looks down at paper on which many eyes are drawn. Acevedo, the bandana around his mouth, spreads black paint on a surface with a blade, then takes off his rubber glove. He sprays a drawing of a woman with long dark hair. He spreads black paint on the carving with a roller. He puts the painted panel and paper through a press machine with large metal rollers and a wheel that turns them.
So yeah, it describes the part of the process that I've been working at, but at the same time, how like the surroundings we just like go through through my artwork. That's what I'm trying to describe, and it goes through like through a metaphorical way about like talking to space about like what's the this is spaces in between the Inland Empire, Southern California,
He cranks the wheel swiftly with his hands.
and what's like and what is all this focusing in like certain like animals, for example, like, and sometimes you can find in my artwork like raccoons. You will find crows.
He removes the paper from the press and lifts the backing off of it. He carefully peels the paper off of the paint-covered carving, creating a print of the image of a woman with long dark hair.
And that's like kind of the animals that I feel like they're always like in conflict with what's what could be a place more like settled, you know, a place that's always like looking for some kind of cleaning aspects, you know, how it's so more like square aspects of their lives, more like a routine, something that sometimes I do not feel like too much too much like reflected on that.
Sunflowers, Acevedo sitting under blowing tree branches. Text in Spanish, credits against a mountain. Featuring Acevedo, shot and edited by Adrian Dyson, production assistant Pável Acevedo. Filmed somewhere on Cahula land. The short film ends.
And always, I like to have those elements always in my work. So, because it would just create like this confrontation to that between what's could be a nice image or like patterns, and you will see all of those like elements that were like portrayed in the video about like elements from the palm trees or the leaves. That's always what it's looking for in printmaking or in my work. But we can go to the next slides, please.
A photo of a cityscape dwarfed by a large snow-covered mountain.
And yeah, behind it you will see just the elements as the Cucamonga Peak, or what is called the San Gabriel Mountains. We can just keep going, please.
A close-up of Acevedo working on the mural, painting the details on a giant honeybee wrapped in red ribbon.
In those elements, in the opposite wall is just a bee, which is a pollinator, and I was supposedly be adding in the opposite wall in a dimension that's like smaller than that. But since it was the opposite wall and it's more like landscape, it's like really white. Um, uh, the bee worked perfect because it's one of the main elements that makes possible all this pollination process. For example, like and flowers or like any other fruits, and even like to contain like all the populations of insects. And in this picture, is you not see, but there's some other like elements. So on orange is strawberries, but still because of time they were like enough pictures. But we can go through the next slides.
Text, characters, mask. A photo of a round animal mask drawing on a tree trunk.
And like I was saying, like the same element of having like the two childs being in the ground, being in the mural, it's the same way that I still like working with those like elements, having like childs like as tails, they're like surrounded in the nature, like having elements in their mask, and then those masks have elements from like animals that have a relevant basically about like pollination, or like they're just guarding the forest. For example, in this one is just in the mask there's like elements from a jaguar, and there's an elements from the bat, and something right now is something that I've been doing mostly, and just go for walks and do like paste stops and like in trees, and they don't actually damage it like trees or anything. They just like paper will fall and just like will disintegrate. And some others I do it on the walls, but we can just like keep going.
Text, Baja California hybrid elements of SoCal. An antique carving of a human mask. A photo of a large black truck taking up 2 parking spaces. An antique drawing of indigenous Mexican people.
It's the same like weight about like having like this like grounding to yourself. So, and the other element is about like Baja California, the other mural, this by the Wignall. and it's in the lobby. So for example, I do choose to call it Oaxaca, California, because it was a way to me to relate to when I just arrived to Riverside. There was an anthropology like professor at the UCR, and he did a research about like Oaxaca, California. He called it, and it was like the migration from Oaxaca to Riverside, California, and how like workers was just like come to work and to do like the farm work at the orange fields. So I do like this project because it was like to bring like elements from ambiguity. You will see like this mask between like life and death, and this is something that it's really common in the IE or Southern California. There's like enormous trucks, and in the right hand side you will see like this part of the codex where there was like portrayed which was like one of the first battles after the Spaniards came to this land. And yeah, I can talk more about it in the next slides, some details.
A black and white line drawing of a truck on a grid like a chain link fence.
And this was the first like proposals that I was like having like for the mural, which is having this wire and having like these elements. Sometimes it's being like talking for like ways to come across the border. Sometimes to me it's like a little bit like have second thoughts about it, because it's just to tell a story, you know, about immigration, and it's a story I hear about it. I do have a way that I can just talk about it, but it's not mine, you know. And in that, sometimes I just want to be respectful, because I don't want to be talking about those elements sometimes, because they're actually not mine. It's not my story how I immigrate to this country, and I can just like be so close, but you know, I just don't want to be like portray my artwork in that sense, you know, and feel like I'm actually like capitalizing for that. And sometimes I have like always second thoughts. This probably just myself. We always like have like second thoughts. I have like really be like careful about what I'm putting there. So it was one of the elements that was happening. And I was reviewing with Rebecca every time, so we can just go through the next elements there for the mural.
A black and white line drawing of a girl with long dark hair with two faces connected by a seam in the middle, one looking left and one looking right.
And this one's the same. The reason why like I choose her, my daughter, again, is because the way they like, she's growing between two cultures, you know. And it's the same way that like many of the students will see themselves probably in the past, in the present, probably will see them in the future, you know, how you always like in these two areas, you know. And then you can be like have any like background in yourself, like, and you're always gonna be in this two, and always open like this, like talks about like being in this place that to me sometimes it's a third land, in a way that you can just explore more identities, you know, and like question on identities, and just for you to know, like get lost, you know. So we can go to the next slide.
Drawings of road signs. A green freeway sign that says California 905, a black and white sketch of California 905 sign framed by geometric shapes from the indigenous drawings.
For example, I choose like elements for like the 905, which is the freeway that comes right from the border to Tijuana and just comes all the way to Southern California, and then I just create like different glyphs from the codex. You will see the Lincoln, which is like the movement, and this element is on the mural as a stencil. We can just go to the next slide.
A black and white illustration of the truck parts labeled with numbers. A drawing of a man's face in a baseball cap over the disassembled truck.
For example, I use like the element that you will see there comes from a carving that I did before, just having these elements of like aesthetic, the hats, which is like Southern California with the trucks, and just like a face that is almost like falling apart, which is like talking about like researching or keeping the identity or digging on your identity, but just to do not get lost, you know. Which is getting lost is a good thing too.
A close-up of indigenous glyphs, a human figure with two frilly branches growing from their nose. A black and white drawing of a girl in pigtails with a 905 sign on her forehead and 2 protrusions over her mouth.
And those elements from the glyphs from the Oaxaca, which is Huaxteca, which is means from the a plant that grows from the nose. You will see in your left, and use the same elements from a drawing in the portrait of that child. But it was too. It was gonna be like one of the options for the mural. Or we can go to the next one, please.
A black and white drawing of a lumpy creature with tentacles below and a cactus inside.
And I did create an element that is in the mural too. This is a way based on other elements from the pre-Hispanic glyphs. So this is like, to me, which represent like Riverside. Riverside, you have like the Mount Robidoux, which is like a landmarks. And always like felt like really attracted to landmarks and how ourselves could be a landmark. So just like change the cross like for like a movement. This is for the 4 roads and the pre-Hispanic codex, so you will see a lot of that, and just the nopales and the Mount Hill and just the water coming out of that. In the right hand, you will see like the way how like a hill would say is that Tepetle, and the Chapulín, which is like grasshopper, and Ameyali, which is like a manantial. So that was one of how I was like use that one as a reference to create mine. Can go to the next one.
A black and white drawing of a girl's head, her neck terminating in branching tentacles.
And yeah, this is like the way the portrait of herself is just like at the pedal, a mountain coming water from that. It's just like talking about like life, creativity, brightness, future, and like always a resource of creativity, like child. It will never stop, will always just grow up, you know, like a river always like has like ways to like keep like going. We can go to the next one.
The drawing of the girl with 2 faces painted on a wall.
This is more like elements from the mural. The same symbol of the Huaxteca is like right on top of their head. You will see the 905. We can go to the next one.
The girl with the branching neck and the man in a baseball cap painted on a wall, surrounded by elements of indigenous glyphs and chain link fence on 905 signs.
And on you will see like the same portrait, and on top is like the Chapulín, the grasshopper, which is like a really a meaningful way to like refer to Oaxaca, and also the bakers, because this place is just like it's a land for drive-through food, and you will see historically how like many brands will appear from here, and like how like the many it's a resource for like working people, you know. So it's always, to me, it's like it has to have like this hybrid moments. And in the part what the portrait is like, which is you see in the print, it's the how we see like folks always like wearing this like hats, and so always like so Southern California, like what you, it's always telling where you're coming from, what you support, and like parts of the elements from this like war that happened after the Spaniards came, which is like the La Guerra del Mixtón, which is the Mixtón War. And there are elements you will see said Sol, S-O-L, which is son, which is talks about like when one of the Pedro Alvarado, who was called Tonatiuh, he was like one of the main like captains close to Hernán Cortés, who died in that war. And it was one of the biggest wars that happened after Tenochtitlan got surrendered. So in Tonatiuh died, and Pedro de Alvarado was called Tonatiuh because he was blonde. So natives used to call it Tonatiuh because he's blonde as the sun. Tonatiuh means sun. So it's Dábaro when he died. And on the other side, you will see when one of the warriors from the Cascanes got baptized. And to me, it was like, it's really important because I just to learn how like always like there's a way for our culture to find like to be resilient, to come through all their symbols to keep going, or like identity. So, and that's a way they like will repeat. You will see in different arts that was done before, and it's always to try to communicate part of our culture that was repressed and we still like keep going and going around it. So this to me, like how like this main figure was like between like a surrender, but between like the death of like the killing of like a conquistador, which was like many of them were like they were brutal people. Probably there's another one, so maybe we'll.
Photos of Acevedo standing on scaffolding to paint black and white textured figures on a wall, two men grappling. A shirtless man posing in front of the California freeway sign.
Yeah, just talking like as a resume, like all this mural work with printmaking that I've been like working and doing more researches. And those works, they just came up after working with the murals at the Chaffey College. We can go to the next one. And yeah, that was like after having those works at the Chaffey College, it was like open to have on any other like any works with Santa Clara. So it was a residency that I did, and it was to like exploring more like the work of the mural with the pre-making and the aesthetic, and yeah, just like making it more like wild, like explosion to me. We can just get going.
A photo of an outdoor mural, a woman in a gray dress covered in chain link fence in a gray circle framed in red.
That was before the mural in the dining room. That was my first color into a mural. So going to the dining room was more like feeling something that was just like closer, more that I want to explore. We can go to the next ones. Yeah, that was the process of the same one too.
A photo of Acevedo on scaffolding painting the mural of the woman in gray.
That's in La Sierra University. I guess probably will be at the end, or we're at the end of this presentation probably.
A photo of a drawing of black bats on a wall, the word immigrant scrawled under it in green.
Oh no, still like there's the bats. That's something that I've been doing, like I was said before, going for like walks and using the same weight of paste off and just having a different answer from your artwork yourself to like looking around. And yeah, just right now I'm just doing it more and more because I have more a vehicle right now, so it's more like easy for me to do it. And yeah, everything changes, so sometimes it's I don't know, it's a way to like keep going, whatever you like have to be doing, especially in this times, and exploring it that way. It's like you definitely will find something and question other formats to look to display work. We can go for the next ones.
A black and white line drawing of a seated woman hugging her knees and wearing a horned mask framed by the underside of a massive tortoise.
This is one of the last works that I've been doing, just to talk about the maps and the relationship of a landmark, the relationship of what's around it, and the representation in this, which is the turtle, which is an ancient animal, and it's like a connection with earth, and how like a child or like ambiguous character will grow from it and like will know from what's the land. It comes to like from tales that I was like told by my grandpa. Right, there's one, or we can just close.
A photo of a drawing pasted on a wall near train tracks with text. This is of blighted land infected with the virus of human greed.
Yeah, we can close with this one, which is like the same lina cuts that have been just like with pasting around in Inland Empire. Yes, I guess we're fine. Yes, please, if there's any question, comment about this.
Trawick.
All right, thank you, Pavel. It's such an honor to hear about your process and your practice. So we appreciate your generosity today. So yeah, I'm going to kick it off to Andy. He has some questions, I believe, from the chat, which he'll ask you. And then, of course, please ask any additional questions that y'all have in the audience, okay?
Andy Hagel.
Right, yeah, if you do have, if you would like to ask a question too, you can just put your hand up or just unmute yourself and ask as well. But I don't know how much time we have. Unfortunately, I know that we have a lot of questions. It was great to see your process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know that we're probably gonna have a lot of students viewing this at some point. So I think maybe one question I would like to ask is just, do you have any advice for young creative minds, students that are just about to graduate or those that are about to enter the workforce?
Well, just look for open minds like yourself, or like look for folks that are like really like into find those creative outlets. They always like have like this way for you to grow and like build those connections like based on creativity. That's really valuable because you invest time in it and you actually grow from that. You have to grow yourself, and after like while you're growing, you have to like spread it too. So that's really important for when you're going out. And if you the great thing whenever you're at school is you have to speak as much as you have to speak, and you have to do as much as you have to do, and because we always have the behavior when you say, oh, I used to look in the back and everything when I do was horrible, and I think if you're in school, you can do as much as you can, so with that you have like enough like support to see what you don't want to do, what you want to like keep exploring, and what you want to like change, and just get a little bit loose and lost at the same time, to not be afraid about your artwork, so that's something like you don't have to be afraid. You can be afraid about other stuff, but not when you're doing your creativity process, because that's like muting yourself. That's what I feel.
Hegel.
I might ask another question too, just going back a little bit more into your process. You definitely talked about how printmaking influences your mural work, but I feel like also the printmaking is such a huge part, maybe even more of the foundation to your practice, it seems. Could you talk maybe a little bit about your education in printmaking, or how you got started doing that?
Yeah, I did start like for printmaking. I started working on lithograph at a studio in Oaxaca. It was called like Rufino Tamayo. I did start doing lithography. I did like to draw before that, but I didn't have that much knowledge about painting. So lithography opened that door, and I did like it because it's like a lot of like physical work, and there's parts you have to be. I mean, not everything in your artwork is like how I feel. Doesn't matter in the technique. I just need to explore my spirit, and it's okay. But you have to like have a way to go to it, So with that, like comes your craft. So I did get into printmaking because of that, the lithography. But later I was doing more like painting, acrylic oil painting. I spent a lot of time doing painting. I did have like relief printmaking with my professor. His name is Shinsaburo Takeda. But mostly I did it through friends. A lot of that was like hanging out. Everybody that was like working with that, or like even just hanging out, which is like working. It was just a normal thing to do, just hanging out in a bar and just like working, or like talking about how you're gonna achieve a project. So I didn't expect to be able to basically focus in my work and relief printmaking like as I do right now, until I moved here. And I was doing like large drawings. I did a lot of like larger scale drawings in charcoal. And later I just like land on printmaking. And I just think about myself, and I thought about my surrounding and like what I was like going for. And I was like, just happening to be, If I was like 12 years out of school, somebody would tell me, yeah, you're gonna be doing a lot of printmaking. I wouldn't be like, that's not possible. I don't like it, I don't like it like as I do like printmaking, but it's just, you have to be open, and not married with that technique, but mostly I do right now, I guess. But yeah, it's great. You meet a lot of like people, printmakers that are like generous and always like the way of sharing. That's what I like it the most too. You have many life after just being in the studio.
Trawick.
Right. So it looks like we're nearing the end of our time together. So I have one final question I'd like to ask you, Pável. Yes. Is there anything that you are reading, looking at, watching, listening to, etc., that you'd like to recommend to the audience? And or is there an artist or group of artists that you'd like to, whose work you'd like to amplify?
Okay, I do like to amplify. There's a printmaker artist. His name is David. Forget his last name. I can, let me see. His name is David. So, you know, there's another group. It's called this desert triangle carpeta, and they have a blogspot. They have an Instagram, but you can go through, find it on Google, and you will find the resources. It's a way they goes with different printmakers from around the United States and Mexico too. That's a good way that you can. It's like it will be like a directory for yourself, so you can just like click and find the printmaker that you like. And that's one way that I can sell. I don't have one name right now. In another ones will be, for example, I was in a residency at Cala. There's many like printmakers that goes there from around the world, and they all have like different ways to approach printmaking, which is like really great. There's not just like one like way. When you go like as an artist there, you experience a lot. So that's a great. Software graphics is another way that you can like find many printmakers and artists that work with the community. So I will say like those are the printmakers that you can or artists that I would like to highlight for right now.
And how about music? I know you like to post music. You're
Oh
listening
yeah,
on Facebook.
yeah, there's a label called like Ethos Fine Noise, and it's a label from Inland Empire. There are like a lot of like punk activisms, folks that were there. A lot of them they used to like gravitate about around this collective called Blood Orange Info Shop. So it's a really DIY group. Ethos Fine Noise. There's some book that I'm reading. It's called How to Disappear, Not of Invisibility in This Time of Transparency. Talks about like about all this social media, but it's good. It's a way like I found out myself like taking a walk. And the author is Akiko Bosch, Busch. And there's a project that's gonna be like coming for. It was stopped this year, but it's gonna come for next year with a band from Oakland. They work with another like label, a DIY label from Philadelphia, which is called Get Better Records. Get Better Records is a label DIY. They like works with a lot of queer folks, and they've been doing a lot of like work right now with community in highlighting a lot of like musicians or creativity folks too. So by next year, the album will be out too. So that's another like way. And they're small outlets that they're not in the same state, but they always like they have like a connection to here.
Thank you. Well, Roman's going to close us out here in a moment, but two things. First, again, Pável, thank you so much. Our gratitude to you for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it. And number two, I just want to point out to anybody who didn't already see it in the chat that the murals that Pável created that are located on the campus of Chaffey College will be available for all of you to see anytime once the campus is open to the general public. The first two are located in the dining commons in the center of campus, and the other is located in the Center for the Arts, or CAA building, on the second floor. So if you haven't seen them in person in real life yet, once things return to a more normal, please come back or visit us and visit those murals.
Yeah, and thank you for Chaffey College community, Rebecca. They've always been a big support and like a way for me like to keep growing like creativity. So I do really appreciate it, and it's like really important to support any event that you guys have. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll pass it off to Roman here, who will close us out. And thanks everybody for attending.
tinyurl.com/wignallfall20. Roman Stolenwork.
We also ask that you complete a quick online survey, very brief, that'll help us evaluate our online programming and our plans for future programs. And that's the tiny URL that should be on the screen there. It's tinyurl.com/wignallfall20. If you'd like to learn more about native land acknowledgement, there are 2 websites on the screen that have more information.
usdac.usnative-land.ca.
And other than that, thank you very much for your participation.